Damien Huffman and the murder of Jack and Linda Myers. The boy you just heard is 4-year-old Damien Huffman. Just 1 hour before this police interview was recorded, Damien was living a quiet, happy life with his grandparents in rural Ohio. Raised by them since birth, Damien was their whole world, and they were his. But on March 27, 2003, everything changed when Damien showed up at the front door of his daycare alone, covered in blood. No one knew what to make of those words until investigators went and checked on his grandparents, and saw both of them dead in their beds. With no suspects and no clear motive, this murder in Ohio might have remained a mystery if not for one clever 4-year-old boy who pretended to be sleeping and became the only living witness. He saw something he shouldn't have, something that could solve the case, but could also cost him his life. It's 2003. In the quiet rural town of Bradford, Ohio, 4-year-old Damien lives with his great-grandparents, Jack and Linda Myers, and his mother Amber on their 40-acre farm. Amber was just a teen when she had Damien in late 1998. So, without hesitation, her grandparents, Jack and Linda, still full of energy, opened their home to Amber and her new son. They gave her a place to stay and helped raise Damien as their own. When Damien came along, he was just so precious. You know, they loved him. And they loved me enough to help me out. And so they helped me with him. Jack and Linda had met later in life, blending their families when they got married in their 50s. Together, they ran a small pizza shop and quickly became pillars in their tight-knit community. I was living with Grandma and Grandpa cause them being the kind, loving people that they were. They took me in and cared for me and everything. And Mom would come and see me. We were always having fun, laughing, and just carrying on and whatnot. Jack and Damien were the best of friends. Jack would sit him on his lap, and they'd be out there just driving around in the field. And Damien thought that was the coolest thing ever. Family meant everything to them. Their home was always full of kids, grandkids, and the smell of home-cooked food during frequent, big family dinners. The farm was a place that everybody went and got together for all the family gatherings. This is Grandpa Jack at his best. Oh, that's Grandma. Hi, Grandma. I mean, we all had great family things that we did together. We were all so close that you didn't put that step-parent or stepson into things. You know, we were all just really close. There was no reason to ever think that anything bad would go on there. Life was good for the Myers. Amber, now an adult, recently got married and was able to live in her own home, finally gaining the financial stability to fully support Damien by herself. The plan was clear. After Damien finishes preschool, he'll officially move out to be with his mother, just 30 minutes away from Jack and Linda's farm, and start kindergarten in his new neighborhood. But on March 27, 2003, things take a disturbing turn for the worse, when at 9:15 a.m., a 911 dispatcher in Ohio receives an unusual call. On the other end, a preschool teacher frantically explains that a little boy has just arrived at daycare. He's alone, in his pajamas, and he's covered in blood. That's not a call we get every day. What could melting grandparents mean? Something was wrong. The little boy is Damien, who lives a mile down the road at the farm. The preschool teachers recognize him as one of their daycare students and fear something terrible must have happened for him to run all the way here on his own. Officers head straight to the Myers farm, but they have no idea what to expect, and no one knows yet what's happened to Damien's family. Fearing the worst, and with a class full of children nearby, the dispatcher orders the teachers to go into full lockdown. We didn't know what we were dealing with. We didn't know if it was an injury or if it was an assault. Were there perpetrators at the scene? I'm just assuming worst-case scenario. What was first noticed was the front door of the house was standing wide open. We tactically entered the door, where we stopped, took cover, calling out, "Anybody home? Anybody here?" And there was still no response. The house is quiet. Too quiet. Guns drawn, the officers step through the front door, slowly making their way through the kitchen. Then they push open the bedroom door. Their worst fears are confirmed when they discover 2 bodies on the bed, not moving and covered in blood. They're identified as Jack and Linda, Damien's grandparents. I see that Jack was bleeding from the mouth and nose. He had a gunshot wound to the back of his head. I could see that he had suffered significant blood loss. I checked him for a carotid pulse, and he obviously wasn't breathing. And I determined he was deceased. Linda had suffered a gunshot wound directly to the face, and also to the hand. They both felt a little bit warm to the touch, which tells me it hasn't been days that they've been deceased. It's probably more like hours. Unsure if the killer might still be at the scene, officers quickly search the house room by room. However, they confirm no one else is inside the home. The killer is still at large. Back at the daycare, Damien is placed under the care and supervision of police. His safety is the top priority. With no killer in custody and police just beginning their investigation, everyone is a suspect, even family. It's not safe to let Damien out of their sight. Meanwhile, more officers arrive at Amber's house with the heartbreaking job of giving her the tragic news about what happened earlier in the day. The detectives told me that they were no longer with us, and I was confused. I said, "And Damien too?" Because the way that they worded it made me think my son wasn't here either. He was actually put in a protective custody status, and he was hidden from all of his family members. Not knowing where Damien was or how he was feeling, there was nothing I could do. To comfort my son is the worst feeling in the world. As Damien remains hidden from his surviving family for his own protection, news of the sudden murders reaches the town and the surrounding dark county, leaving everyone shocked. Nothing like this has ever happened here, and the residents are on edge, wanting answers. Detectives begin canvassing the neighborhood and quickly discover that no one heard gunshots the night before. It's strange, 2 people were shot at close range, in their sleep, and no one nearby heard a thing. But what really stands out is how Damien arrived at daycare. It was about a mile to his preschool. He had to cross a busy road and even pass through the yard of a neighbor who owned 2 very large, very aggressive dogs. Somehow, this 4-year-old boy made it past all that alone, and covered in blood. Investigators are baffled, but the more they observe Damien, the more they realize something incredible. He might not just be a survivor. He might be the only witness. Officers sit down with him, gently, quietly, and then something unexpected happens. Damien begins to speak. The tape recorder clicks on, and his tiny voice fills the room. The bad guy hurt them. I was asleep, but I woke up and heard a bang. I saw the man. He had a mask on his face. He was in black. He pointed something at Grandma. Then he saw me, but I closed my eyes and pretended to be sleeping. Then I waited till he left. Then I ran to Miss Annie's. Miss Annie was the daycare teacher. Investigators are stunned. Damien just described a masked intruder, dressed in black, who killed his grandparents and fled the scene. Not only that, he knew enough to pretend to be asleep to stay alive. That decision saved his life. But who would do this? Who would want to hurt Jack and Linda Myers? Detectives look into Jack and Linda's background. No enemies. No major financial issues. Nothing shady. And no signs of forced entry at the house. Then, one strange thing pops up. Jack owned a small gun collection, but none of the guns are in the home anymore. Someone took them. It suggests that whoever did this knew what they were looking for, and maybe knew the family well. The family is reeling, but investigators are just getting started. At the station, detectives begin re-interviewing everyone close to Jack and Linda. They start with their adult children and extended relatives. One name stands out quickly: David Myers, Jack's biological son. David had always been different. As a teen, he got in trouble with the law, in and out of rehab, failed relationships, and according to family members, he had been estranged from Jack for years due to money problems and personal conflicts. More importantly, he had visited the farm just 2 weeks before the murders, and it hadn't gone well. Amber, Damien's mom, remembers it clearly. He was yelling at Grandpa, accusing him of cutting him out of the will, said he deserved his share. Grandpa told him to leave, and that was it. Could David have come back for revenge? Detectives learn David owns a black pickup truck. One neighbor, located about a half-mile from the farm, remembered seeing a similar truck idling near the road the morning of the murder, but they didn't think much of it at the time. That's enough for police to bring David in for questioning. In the interrogation room, David plays it cool. He claims he hasn't been near the farm since the argument 2 weeks prior. He denies any involvement and says he was home all night, alone. No alibi, no witnesses, but no confession. Still, police are confident they're on the right track. Then, a break. While reviewing security footage from gas stations and traffic cameras, a surveillance video shows a black pickup truck matching David's headed down the rural road toward the Myers farm at 3:12 a.m. the morning of the murders. That puts him near the scene at the time of the killings. Still not enough to arrest. Yet. Then another break. Police find one of Jack's missing firearms. A local pawn shop reports that someone tried to sell it just days after the murder. The person? David Mayers. The clerk remembered his ID and phone number from the paperwork. Now they've got him. Police bring David back in, and this time, they don't hold back. They present the surveillance footage, the pawn shop receipt, and Damien's chilling testimony. But David just shrugs. You really gonna believe a 4-year-old? Come on. He's just a kid. He probably had a bad dream. But the police don't buy it. They arrest David Mayers on 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of child endangerment, and multiple firearm violations. It's one of the most shocking arrests in the county's history. Back home, Damien is finally reunited with his mom, Amber. The reunion is emotional. He clings to her, unable to put into words what he experienced, but his actions speak volumes. This little boy lost everything in one night. His safety, his innocence, his whole world. He wasn't the only one grieving. Linda's sister described how difficult it was to watch Damien afterward. He didn't want to sleep in a bed. Not for a long time. He would only sleep under the bed, like he was still hiding. But what this 4-year-old did, what he witnessed, made all the difference. His testimony, his memory, and his bravery cracked open a case that might have gone cold. It gave his family a chance at justice. Left-pointing magnifying glass if you've made it this far. You already know this story runs deeper than it first appeared. Don't miss how it ends. Like this video, subscribe to Dark Files, true crime documentary, and hit that bell icon so you never miss the truth hiding in the shadows. Now let's get back to the investigation. #speech bubble hash. As David Mayers sits in jail awaiting trial, the prosecution begins building their case with everything they have. Damien's testimony, the pawn shop record, and the surveillance footage of the truck near the farm. But there's a problem. David's defense team argues that Damien's age makes him an unreliable witness. They file motions to exclude his statements, calling them hearsay, suggesting the boy might have been coached or confused. But the court disagrees. Because Damien made his initial statements before any adult asked him specific questions. Statements made at daycare, while crying, before anyone even knew what had happened. And his story never changed. Every time he told it. Same man, same mask, same actions. That consistency mattered. The court allows Damien's statements to be used in trial. Even with a solid case, prosecutors know that juries can be unpredictable, especially in cases hinging on the memory of a 4-year-old. So they work hard to strengthen the timeline and motive. They show the argument between David and Jack. They track the missing weapons. They present the pawn shop sale. And they paint David as an entitled, bitter man who believed he was owed something. At trial, David never testifies. He just sits there, expressionless, as Amber takes the stand to speak about her son's trauma. As Damien's preschool teacher recalls the moment he arrived, covered in blood. As the detective who heard Damien's story describes the coldness of that night. Then, something unexpected happens in court. One of the forensic analysts testifies that although Jack and Linda were shot in bed, there was a footprint, a child-sized one, next to the dresser in the bedroom. It matched Damien's foot size exactly. The implication? Damien had gotten out of bed. He had seen something, and then he'd run. It corroborated everything he said. When the prosecution rests, they've painted a picture not just of a double homicide, but of a child survivor who outsmarted a killer. The jury deliberates for just 6 hours before returning with a verdict. Guilty on all counts. David Mayers is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice, at least in the legal sense, is served. But the damage done, to Damien, to the family, to a quiet Ohio community, is immeasurable. Years later, Damien grew up carrying that trauma, but also the strength. His mother says he never wanted to be called a hero, but that's what he is. Because of a 4-year-old's quick thinking, because he played dead, stayed quiet, and remembered, his family found closure. A killer was caught, and a story that might have faded into silence became one of resilience, survival, and courage in the face of pure horror. If this story moved you, help keep these stories alive. Like this video, subscribe to Dark Files, True Crime Documentary, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a case that deserves to be heard. Real crime, real justice, real stories.